I was afraid of the tyranny of my father when I was doing bad in school. There are very few people in the world who have been blessed with perfect parenting. Many of your psychological issues can be traced back to the ways that you have been brought up by, and your greatest step towards improving your mental health is dealing with those issues. To do that, you have to recognize them, which is by no means is an easy task and doesn't happen overnight, yet you have to tackle it as you go. So let's see how your parents may have screwed your head.
Anxiety is an issue that is being brought to light more and more frequently in mainstream media, which can really help those that suffer from this issue. People often see anxiety as just something that everyone experiences, but it's important to recognize that there's a difference between the occasional bout of nerves and the debilitating symptoms of those that suffer from anxiety as an actual mental illness. Graham C.L. Davey is an experimental psychopathologist. He researches mental health in labs and, in particular, tries to get a better understanding of the causes of anxiety-based problems through controlled experimentation. Davey has spoken a lot about the phenomenon of helicopter parents.
The myriad of ways that you experience anxiousness is sign of lacking self-esteem, haven't felt love in the past, which consequentially can make you feel insecure about yourself and your abilities.
As Davey explains, it's only natural for parents to want to do the best for their kids, particularly in terms of health and education. But helicopter parents probably overdo this. Davey elaborates further, saying, "In life, everyone will be faced by threats and challenges at some point, and will need to know how to deal with these when they arise. Kids whose parents shield them from every kind of challenge, even challenges they face in education, run the risk of growing up anxious, largely because their parents' protective behavior has prevented them from practicing suitable coping responses, and has conveyed to them that maybe there is something frightening about those things their parents have been shielding them from."
These are the symptoms of people who suffer with the complex of good parenting. They do everything that they can in order to make the experience of childhood as great as possible. Because they don't know how to be parents, they throw everything good in life at their kids, hoping that they won't experience any hardships, which paradoxically enough makes them even weaker. Childhood is not about protecting children. It's about guiding them through life, giving them all the tools that they need that are necessary in order to cope with different barriers, both mentally, socially, and physically. By blocking them out from adversities, they remove their agency and make them to miss out on a great time of development. Life isn't about pleasures. Life isn't about sliding through on an easy mode. It's about gathering the wisdom necessary so that the child, you, can become a self-sufficient unit that both contributes to the society and passes on the wisdom to the next generation.
Along with helicopter parents, you have snowplow parents. Snowplow parents are probably the worst, observed Davey. By removing everything in life that might be a potential obstacle to their child, they never allow their children to learn how to cope with their own obstacles in life. I suspect many helicopter parents are themselves anxious people who are genuinely attempting to do the best for their kids, says Davey, when discussing what makes helicopter parents so protective. But as a result, they're not allowing their offspring to find out about the world and how to cope with it. Davey points out that kids don't come with manuals. Every parent has a different way of raising kids, but it's been proven time and again that overprotection is a downside and doesn't allow children to develop coping mechanisms later in life.
This is especially true when talking about the so-called snowflake generation. When people become triggered for the slightest thing, this is offensive, this is inappropriate, this is wrong. You shield off yourself from the reality of the world, not developing the ability to cope with the harshness of life. If something offensive, if something is inappropriate, it's not the problem of the external world, it's the problem of yourself. You have to learn to implement situational action, not momentary reaction. And it's about your own emotions, mastering them, understanding them, not succumbing to them, which is of course is initiated in your early ages, from the ages of 2 to 5. It's when you're most impressionable. It's where your ego hasn't developed as much, so your mind is acting as a sponge, sucking in all the knowledge, all the impressions, all the experience that it gets exposed to. By guarding you from the outer world, your parents make you weaker and in a way create codependency in your relationship between parents and children. Every time you experience hardships, you will run into their bosoms and ask them to resolve your problems. You have to cut the cord between parents and children early on to initiate the process of independence.
Davey is quick to point out what a major influence a parent can have on the mental health of their children. Parents can be quite subjective about what issues they consider important in their children's lives, explains Davey. But arguably more important than this is the way these issues are dealt with. Negative parenting, for example, is particularly problematic and a common source of mental health problems in offspring. Negative parenting includes disciplining strategies such as threatening a child, "You stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about," or attending to the child only when they're doing something wrong.
I've experienced negative parenting a lot in my childhood, but it also was a common thing back in the days and during the circumstances that I've been brought up. I don't want to sound too dramatic because I wasn't constantly abused, but at periods I felt this constant feeling of fear. I was afraid of the tyranny of my father when I was doing bad in school, but that fear is long gone and I've dealt with it long time ago. You have to positively encourage your children to do good in life, to compete, to develop necessary skills, and by positively I mean rewarding for great achievements and not punishing when they do bad. Yet again, as I said before, it's about people who don't know anything about parenting. Most often than not, in contemporary societies, parents don't have time with their kids. There's a daycare, there's school. You take a parental leave for a couple of years and then you have to work. So other people end up fostering your children. And when you do have time for them, you try to do everything to make it up for them for being absent. And you try to bribe them, buy their love with material stuff and possessions, with money, which is not the way to go. No amount of material things can build up a strong interior.
Studies have shown that about 30% of our anxiety can be traced to our own genetics, but the other 70% is influenced by experience and upbringing. Even 10-month-old babies can pick up on negative behaviors from a parent and avoid things that their parents have behaved negatively towards, Davey explains. This probably stays with kids through their childhood and is likely to override any contrary explanations given by the parent. Vicarious learning is a significant way in which children pick up anxieties throughout childhood. Many non-human animals also learn their fears by watching other conspecifics behaving fearfully, so it's quite a common mechanism in nature. A parent will need a very convincing argument to dissuade an offspring not to be fearful of something they've seen someone else behaving fearfully of too.
And the scariest thing is that those adult people don't even realize that they have a lot of trauma from the past, from the childhood. They go through life screwing up their relationships, both private and business-wise, without even understanding why nothing is happening for them, thinking that everyone is wrong, blaming others, and not taking a look inside. These strong experiences are so old that they are repressed in the subconsciousness. And to be aware of your own problems takes a lot of courage, time, and dedication. Willingness to look inside and try to find the devil. I mean, your biggest enemy is you yourself.
Graham clearly shows how parents have a massive impact on what experiences children will take from the world around them. If you convince a child that something should be feared, even if you don't intend to, then they will be more likely to fear it as well. It is good to allow a child to experience things in their own way, instead of removing all risks that they may face, although it is understandable to want to protect your child. Parenting is a difficult thing, but as long as you're there for your child and ready to help when needed, you'll be just fine.
This is why if you want to brainwash people, you have to start with children. Adults are already fully formed in their egos. It's like the saying, trying to teach an old dog new tricks. If you want to control society, control the children. Brainwashing has to start early. Teach them your ways, and they will worship you as their god. How did your parents screw you over? Tell me in the commentary section, and also leave some video suggestions. More videos on parenting. But for now, Hossein out.